Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Dr. Judith Orloff, who's here to share with us her new book, The Genius of Empathy: Practical Skills to Heal Your Sensitive Self, Your Relationships, and the World. So are you an empath who's searching for a greater sense of self-love and to embody your most compassionate self? Well, today's show is just for you. So Dr. Orloff is a member of the UCLA Psychiatric Clinical Faculty and a New York Times best-selling author. She's a leading voice in the fields of medicine, psychiatry, empathy, and intuitive development. Her work has been featured on CNN, NPR, talks at Google, TEDx, and the American Psychiatric Association. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Judith Orloff.
Thank you, Marianne. Great to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So I've got to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I believe that empathy is the medicine that the world needs. And it's the medicine our relationships need to heal, and our relationships with ourselves included. And so I wanted to present empathy as a healing force and a way to tap into it in your body so that you can heal yourself and extend it to your relationships, and then learn ways to find global empathy to help the world.
Well, I love how in your book you talk about empathy itself as a healing act. And I love how you present that. I think it's a new way of looking at empathy. Why don't you share with our listeners how that is? How is that a healing act?
Yes, well, what's interesting from a neuroscience point of view is that if you witness an act of empathy on the street, let's say, and you're watching it and you're getting happy from it, if I were to draw your blood at that moment, your immunity would have gone up, your stress hormones would have gone down, your vagus nerve would get activated, and it would be an all-around healing experience for you, the observer, as it was for the people experiencing it. It's called the Mother Teresa effect. And it's mind-blowing to me because just by simply watching an act of empathy and absorbing all that goodness, your blood work will improve and your immunity improves.
Wow, that is so impressive that that comes together like that. And I'm sure probably people out there are going, well, I don't know if I am empathetic at all. So does everyone have empathy?
Most everyone, there's a scale of empathy that I have. And in the middle is regular empathy, which is so beautiful. And that is, I feel for you, and my heart goes out to you. Now, great, beautiful, fantastic empathy. And then up a little bit higher is the highly sensitive person who has empathy, but tends to be overwhelmed by sights, smells, sounds, crowds, high temperatures, noise. And so they're more highly sensitive people who have empathy. Then on the top of the empathy scale, you have empaths. And I happen to be an empath, and I think you are too, if I'm correct. And empaths have incredible empathy, but they tend to emotionally absorb the energy of other people into their own bodies. So those are all the people with empathy. But at the bottom of the spectrum, we have narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, which I devoted a whole chapter to. And these people have empathy deficient disorder. They do not have empathy. All right. And this is a small percentage of the population. I think it's about 15%. But these people have a big presence. And you need to take care of yourself and protect yourself and your empathy and your goodness and all the good things you're trying to do for yourself and the world. You have to protect yourself from these empathy deficient people.
And you're right. I am an empath.
I
And it's
thought so.
it's interesting, when we first get, at least for me, when I first got to this point where it's like, wow, okay, I can really just sense a lot of a lot of different things going on, it was difficult to be in situations. And so that's why I have such a great appreciation for your work because you help people move through that. And my goodness, we all need that.
We do, because I want to help people with this book strengthen themselves. And those who have empathy to feel very, very confident in that power, and also don't become a doormat or let people walk all over you. Because misconception about empathy is that you give 200% of the time, and you never take time out for self-care. That's a big misconception. All right. If I did that, I would be dead. I would never be able to help anybody, or help myself or enjoy myself. So you help when you can, and you practice self-care at those times when you have nothing else left to give. I mean, unless it's an emergency situation, then you have to go beyond whatever you have and give in that moment as a sacrifice to help the person. But those are fewer and far between than everyday life. And so you could practice empathy every day as a form of healing. It's a different way of looking at empathy, and it's not empathizing with everybody all the time. And it's about being able to say no. At times, I can't do it. I'm too tired, or I'm just not able to help you with that project right now. I'm too overloaded myself. To be able to say it in a kind but firm way, the way my voice is, and be able to show others that you have a big heart, but you're able to set the limits.
Oh, you have so much there I want to unpack. And I'm sure we have empaths going kind of cringing a little bit, like, oh, I could say no. I don't know if I could do that. So,
I know it's scary for people.
oh my gosh. And it seems to be really difficult. Like it's something that is it seems like it's against, what an empath is. But I think most people have been taught wrong in regards to that.
I think so too, but it was interesting. My mother, who is a doctor, and my father, doctor, they swore that they used to tell me, you came out of the womb and said no. So, that I would say no before I said yes to anything. When I was, as I was, I was just rebellious against everything, even when I was super little. No seemed to be more natural for me than yes. Yes, but each person is different. And for most people, no is a very hard thing to say because you feel guilty, and people don't like feeling guilty. They want everyone to be happy. They don't want to disappoint anyone. And part of being an empowered empath and developing a functional form of empathy that you can use every day, and you're not afraid of being drained all the time. Now, you have to be able to stick up for yourself and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Or, like the other day, I asked someone in the gym, can you put some headphones on, because they were blasting out their music when I was working out in the yoga area. And they weren't that happy about my limit, you know? So it is true. Sometimes people are not happy. But, she dealt with it. And, I was happy that I said it. Sometimes you want to have a lot of discretion about who you set boundaries with. If you're ready to set the boundaries with a good friend who can accept it, that's one situation. And in those situations, you might find somebody, just say, thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it that you think our friendship is so close that you can set that boundary with me. It's a beautiful thing when you can set it with a good intention, a good spirit, with a friend. And have those kind of close soul relationships where you can do it. But that sometimes takes working up to that. You need to have a couple conversations, and this is how I'd like to be. I'd like to be honest with you, about certain things when I have limitations, and I don't mean it as any kind of personal affront to you. I just, would like us to have that kind of depth and intimacy in our relationship where we could be honest with one another. And it usually works out really well. Otherwise you're walking on eggshells. You're dancing around this whole thing of boundaries and never dealing with it. And that's not a way to live. You want to set kind but firm boundaries. Some people will respect them, others may not. But you want to do it. just to be clear and to make a statement about where you're at. And if you don't think it will help, if you have a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father, and you can set all the boundaries in the world and nothing is going to change them. However, you want to keep at it so that you could, for you, make small changes. For instance, you don't want to go over there every weekend for 8 hours a day and spend your weekend with them. Maybe you could drop over for an hour, something like that. And they might not like it, but you could do it.
It gives you lots of practice for sure.
It's a peaceful warrior practice. That's how I liken empathy to warrior training in a sense, because I see empaths and empathic people as warriors, as guardians of the earth, because they truly understand the pain that the earth goes through, with everything we've been doing to her and how we can maintain a beautiful earth. They're stewards of the earth. So I have strong feelings about those who are empathic because I know they could be empathic with the earth, because that's just part of it, you see, and that's a powerful point, a role to play, in survival. So I'm a big believer in supporting empaths and empathic people to come into their maximum power, not be afraid that people are going to run them over or that they can't go outside because it's just too overwhelming, that they gain a certain peaceful warrior strength inside and they become confident. And I've worked with so many people, over the years to help empower empaths. And the genius of empathy offers skills. It's a book full of skills. What do you do? How do you find empathy when you're arguing with your spouse? What do you do? How do you find empathy when a loved one is ill and you're just exhausted? How do you find empathy if your son is taking drugs and will not get any help? What form does empathy take? There are all these practical situations that come up in life that empathy can help understand it and deal with them in a much different way than just being miserable.
So, Dr. Orloff, when you titled the book The Genius of Empathy, what exactly did you mean by that? I understand you're saying that there's tools. Is that what you meant?
It's an interesting title, isn't it? Um,
I love it.
I know, I do too. And it came through in such an interesting way because I had named this book Radical Empathy. And as I was writing it, that was the name of the book the whole time I was writing it. And then my publisher said, I don't think that's a good title because there's so many books that start with radical. I think we need to come up with something else. This was at the last minute. And I'm going, oh no, that's a big thing to change a title. A title is a sign of grace from the universe if you get a good title. And so at the very last minute before I, gave them the okay to go ahead with Radical Empathy, I had a flash that came through in my mind that said the genius of empathy. And I'm going, oh my God, you must be kidding me. This is the very last second before I push the button. And I thought, okay, fantastic. That's it. You see, but they waited until the last moment to give it to me.
Well, I love it. I think it's such a great title and it's very fitting for this book. And I know for our listeners there may be new that are thinking about, okay, there's empathy and there's compassion. So is there a difference between the two of them? Is it the same thing?
Well, the Dalai Lama wrote the foreword to this book, and I feel so proud of that. And he writes about empathy and compassion. He says, empathy is one of the most wonderful human qualities when we are deeply aware of this fundamental truth of our human existence, that all of us want to achieve happiness and overcome suffering. We feel empathy and closeness to them. Compassion, on the other hand, is more than just feeling sorry for someone, because when we are compassionate, we not only feel others' pain, we activate a wish to do something about it. And that gives us courage and inner strength. And so compassion is often associated more with action. If I see my neighbor has no food, I want to go to the market and buy a bunch of food for her so that she can eat well. So that's more compassion. Empathy is, oh, I feel your tiredness and I feel your hunger. And I'm so sorry you have to go through that. Whereas compassion is that, which comes from empathy. Plus, I'm going to the store to get you something.
It really has that action piece to it. I love how you bring that together, and congratulations on having the Dalai Lama do that. That is such a big deal.
Thank you for appreciating that.
In your book, you talk about igniting the healing power of empathy. So, is that something we need to really focus on?
If you want really loving, intimate relationships, I certainly would. As imagine relationships without empathy. If that's even possible, it's a very terrible thought because relationships are based on empathy, good relationships. Bad relationships are based on arguing, blaming, shaming, abusing, and not empathizing. I would say those are very unhealthy relationships. But if you have empathy, at least if you and your partner are having an argument or you disagree with something, at least you could say to them, no, I'm going to give it some thought, what you just said, and let me get back to you. If that's the best you can do at the moment. Sometimes you're so triggered, you can't respond in a way that you would like. So you have an out. You can do that. And it helps because then you could come back and say, I gave it some thought and I think you have a good point, but this is how I need to be heard by you. And this is what is important to me. So you lead with vulnerability and you give the other person a chance to respond to you. It's very different than wound mate kinds of discussions where you batter each other and your wounds go head to head. That's not the kind of relationship you want to be in. So empathy allows for all kinds of possibilities so you can reach compromise, so you can show each other respect, so you could be there with your heart and not just your head. It's a whole different quality of intimacy than just being in your head and arguing.
Really is leading from example. And I love how your book gives people not just the verbiage to use, because I think sometimes people just don't have the empathy life skills on how to move forward in maybe conversations that aren't going quite the way that they would want.
Yes, absolutely. Because people freeze; they don't know what to do. Or conversation starts going downhill. Oh, what do I do? Um, and it's good to have an inner dialogue going. I have a very active inner dialogue where going, this conversation isn't going so well. Let's see, what is the best way to deal with this as they're, getting angry or whatever they're doing. And I'm talking to myself. And I think it's a good practice inwardly to compassionate self-talk. And sometimes the best you can do is say, what you said is meaningful to me and I hear you and I'm going to give it some thought and I'll get back to you. Thank you. And that's okay because you do not want to react if you're triggered. And there's a section in the book on obstacles to empathy. And these are your triggers. This is what will stop you from having empathy. And so if you have obstacles such as childhood abuse, sensory overload, you were told you were too sensitive, so you have shame about your sensitivities, all of that, and being overwhelmed or overtired can stop you from being empathic or expressing your empathy in the best possible way. So empathy overwhelm is a big deterrent to empathy because when you're overwhelmed, you can't respond from your heart. Emotional triggers, and if your emotional triggers are set off, empathy will probably be the last thing on your mind because you just are reactive. And in the best of circumstances, an empathic conversation is when you're not reactive, but you're present. You see, so part of healing into empathy is learning what your triggers are, see where they came from, begin to heal them, begin to understand that. So when somebody pushes that button, you're not as triggered. And sometimes shame of being overly sensitive stops you from being empathic. And this is a big one. Unrealistic expectations sets you into a downward spiral. Because if you expect somebody, like let's say you expect a narcissist to come through for you and love you and be there in an unconditional way, and they don't, and you have those expectations, they're going to be crushed over and over again. And that's going to make you angry and feel not seen and not heard. And so it's not conducive to you feeling empathy for anything about them, including their crippled hearts that stop them from feeling any kind of love. And another one is toxic noise. When empathetic people are around lots of noise, they can't think straight, let alone come from their hearts. It's just it jams the circuits, the toxic noise. And so it's important to be able to heal your obstacles and go deeper into your heart so you're able to continue conversations in a loving way without being triggered.
It does seem that everyone arrives in relationship, not all the time, but sometimes, kind of carrying their past pains with them. And they're going to trigger us and we might trigger them. It's to kind of work around that.
Yes, of course, to work around that. And I learned a long time ago, it's not my partner's job to heal me. That's not his job. That's my job. So, you know, it's something that you need to take personal responsibility for by having empathy for yourself in a situation, and empathy for your partner too. But they can never be perfect. They will never be perfect. And they will make mistakes. And you want to have empathy for the times they make mistakes. And you want to have empathy for when they're in pain and they can't react in the way you would like them to. And you want to have empathy for when they could come around and say, I love you and I hear you. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to be with you in the way you needed at that moment. I want to get better. I want to get more consistent with that. So you work, in relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner or a friendship or family members. Healthy relationships are those where you work them through. They keep getting better and better if you can connect to your empathy and really look at them through the eyes of empathy instead of making them into the enemy, because that's what we often do, is make loved ones into the enemy. They're familiar, they're there, we make them into the enemy, and they're not the enemy. And that's not the right direction. What the right direction is, when you feel like doing that, is to take a little break and practice self-care so you could come back to your heart again.
And I know some people really challenge us with that, especially, I think we could use this with our coworkers or people we work with, right?
Absolutely. There's a chapter in here on, how to handle coworkers who are difficult. Where does empathy come in? And it gives you exercises on what to do. Let's say if you're with a drama queen, or what to do if you're with a chronic complainer. How do you deal with that person other than with irritation and judgment? Is there any empathy that could come in there? And why would you want to have empathy? Well, you want to have empathy because you want the work environment to be as positive as possible. And you don't want to have little arguments stick around in the energy field, because energy is contagious. There's positive emotional contagion, which means if you show empathy for your team and they show empathy towards you, that's going to create a positive vibe in the workplace. And if you're snitty and you talk behind each other's back and have no empathy for others' behavior, you're going to have negative energy contagion in the workplace. So just know that's been proven by science. So you want to do everything you can at work to create as much positive as possible. And in general, don't share too much information with coworkers. People tend to over-explain things or overshare or confuse a coworker with a friend, as coworkers are not always friends. Sometimes keep business and keep your boundaries straight. That sometimes is more appropriate. Although sometimes, of course, you're going to make friends out of a coworker, so it doesn't always go either way. But you want to find empathy for the shortcomings in the person that makes them, let's say, talk all the time, or makes them a chronic complainer, or makes them passive aggressive, which is a way of showing anger with a smile. Someone's smiling at you and they get you. But the point is finding empathy for maybe the horrible parenting they had or whatever caused them to be this way, because it's not a happy way to be. And that will give you more acceptance of them, and they'll be able to feel your respect, and they'll be able to feel that you have some kind of a heart energy directed to them, and that will better the atmosphere at work.
What if somebody doesn't know their current level of empathy? How do they figure that out?
Well, there's a test in the book about what is your empathy quotient, and you can answer the questions in the book and just find out how much you have. And some people have more than others, and some people want more and want to develop more than they have at the moment. And so that's important to know too, because you can always do that. Empathy is always something you can grow unless you're a narcissist. It's always something that's in your heart. And it's something that can make you love yourself more, make you comfortable in your own skin. That's what it'll do. So you're not just always uncomfortable in there. You want to be comfortable and loving to yourself, and just show yourself as much unconditional love as possible in this lifetime, because there are big ups and downs and many things happen in life. And so you want to have as much empathy as possible. The empathy is your friend. Empathy is what will get you through the ups and downs of life. Empathy will deepen your relationships with people so you feel a connection to others. There's an epidemic of loneliness now, and people are longing to connect. And empathy is a way to connect. I mean, even just, if you're on the bus and somebody talks to you, just smile at them, or just give a little heart energy, send a little heart energy. And that little heart energy goes all over the bus all of a sudden. And the bus is an amazing place to be. So empathy is that kind of secret that people need to know about in terms of how to shift energy, and how to build the healing power inside of yourself, and learning how to send that energy long distances also to help other parts of the world.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Dr. Judith Orloff in regards to her new book, The Genius of Empathy: Practical Skills to Heal Your Sensitive Self, Your Relationships, and the World. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Have you dreamt of writing your own book but felt lost on where to start? Introducing DIYbook.us, your personal guide to bringing stories to life. Whether it's your life story, business insights, or unique experiences, DIYbook.us makes it easy and affordable. With our step-by-step online program, you'll receive a weekly email prompt tailored to you. Don't let your story go untold. Visit www.DIYbook.us and start your writing journey today with our free 7-day trial. DIYbook.us, where your story comes to life.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Judith Orloff, in regards to her new book, The Genius of Empathy: Practical Skills to Heal Your Sensitive Self, Your Relationships, and the World. It really felt like when I read your book, it is a guide for people in growing up spiritually, especially when we talk about empathy, because you talk about like codependent giving, boundaries, burnout, and a lot of that stuff people have to learn. What is some of the key points in like burnout that you see mostly with people?
Is there good-hearted, loving people who overgive, and they become codependent givers where you spend more attention on somebody else's life than your own. And so you want to find balance. That's the secret. You want to be able to have time off and have empathy for yourself. You want to give to other people, but not at the expense of being a doormat. And you want to learn how to practice self-care every day to some degree, to take care of yourself. At least take a bath at night if you have a bathtub. Get in that water and be purified and relaxed, and give yourself that, instead of staying on your computer trying to solve everyone's problems, answering all these emails, and then you go or try to go right into sleep with that, which only causes restless sleep. So you want to practice self-care part of the day, because you need to be in good shape to be the best person you could possibly be in this world of ours today. And you don't want to become cynical, and you don't want to become resentful. You want to just take good care of yourself and develop your heart so you can be a model for the change you want to see. I in this book, I glorify the power of the individual, because people always say to me, well, what can I do as one person? And I believe the power of one person trying to tap into empathy and love and intuition, that's power. That is real power. And I'd like you to feel it as you go through the exercises of the book. Feel your power building. You feel it from the inside out, from your chest, the heart area. You start feeling this warmth and this strength and this joy and confidence. And so when you are up against energy that doesn't feel good and that you're absorbing it, you know what to do. You stop, You breathe it out. You don't ever hold it in because that keeps it in your body. You breathe it out. You find a place to go and decrease stimulation so you're not on sensory overload or overwhelm. And you come back to yourself. You learn to balance yourself. That's a skill that most humans don't know. They just go from giving to burnout. They don't know, I'm coming back to my balance place, coming back to my heart. That's where if you're lost and you don't know how to do something or what to do, you just come back to your heart. You start all over again. Take a breath. Put your hand on your heart. Say something empathic to yourself and just sit there. Feel the breeze on your face. That's where you need to go to find yourself again.
And what a beautiful example that is for one person to be in the world doing that. We've got so many millions of people reading this book, but you have, let's say, that one person that's in the world doing that and showing that example. And maybe the people around them have never seen somebody in empathy.
That's right. That's so right. And what I've seen, in the researching of this book, there are all kinds of people showing empathy and valuing empathy to a huge degree. You have many people in businesses who are empathic leaders. I was particularly interested in Navy SEALs who are teaching empathy and unconditional love. I mean, Navy SEALs are the tough guys of the tough guys, and they've seen and done everything, and it's just to talk about the heart and empathy and living according to the code of love. There are a number of Navy SEALs who've come out to talk about that. And so it's not just for the sweet spiritual women. It's for everybody who can use it to help themselves. It's when you age and you have empathy for yourself and you don't have a whole ton of resentments hanging on to your energy field, because you're able to say, no, I can let this go. I see the damage that was in you that caused you to do this, and I can let this go. I don't forgive the act of you betraying me or you abusing me. I don't forgive that, but I forgive whatever happened to you, the wounding that caused you to do such horrible things. And when you're able to find that, at least that level of empathy, they float away from your consciousness. So they're not taking up room in your head, and that you don't have to carry them around anymore. And that's why the last chapter is on letting go of resentments. And I wanted to just say, I also offer a prayer for the world, which is very important. And so I think I'm going to read a little bit of it, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay. This is towards the end of the book. A prayer for the world. Inwardly or aloud, say, I pray for the suffering to be lifted from those who are sick, in pain, or oppressed. I pray for the suffering to be lifted from all oppressors so they can learn to love. I pray for the health of the planet and her ecosystems. I pray for the healing of each person's heart. I pray for those who can't ask for help or who feel lost. I pray for the good in the world. I pray for all the underdogs. I pray that all the underdogs will overcome obstacles and be successful. I pray that you and I are happy and healthy. I pray for empathy when I can't find it. I am grateful for empathy when it comes. May we all show mercy to each other and come together in love. And so that's my empathic prayer for you and the world. And it's something you could practice. You can just take a picture of it from the book and just say it every day to open your heart and to have a love for humanity, which is something that's very important. And what empathy gives you is a knowing, a connection to all of humankind, because we're all humans. We're all the same package. Now, we may have our various differences, but they're not as different as we may think.
Not at all. Yeah, at the core, we are all the same.
We're
Mhm.
very, very similar. Yes. It's yes, yes, yes. Um, and it's important to have empathy for all. And I believe in the healing power of empathy and love. I believe that even a little forgiveness can help counter hate. I believe in protecting the natural world and its wild places and creatures. I believe in doing good and trying to make Spaceship Earth, as famed architect Buckminster Fuller called it, a better place than when we came.
I know there's so many people that want to help the planet. How are we able to do that without taking on other people's stress?
Well, that's probably the number one skill of being an empath is how to give and not take on all of people's suffering. There's so much suffering in the world, of course, and there's so much goodness in the world, of course. And human nature is both glorious and brutal. No, we all have a dark side, we all have a light side, but the power of empathy and the power of healing is that we're able to see both our light side and our dark side clearly. So our dark side can't rule us. We can say no to it. The problem with people who deny they have a dark side is that then it has the power to catch up with them and take them over. And it's your power that you gain by being aware of it and with humility by saying, I have, a mean streak. I could be unkind at times. I sometimes get into power, whatever. I'm just thinking of things randomly. I'm selfish. I'm self-absorbed. I can be. Um, and own it. Just own it. And by owning your dark side, it won't have power over you. As then you say, I choose not to be that way. I see it and I'm not going there. But if you don't see it, it has the power to snatch you away. And I don't want it to do that to you. And so when you can be honest with yourself about your pluses and your minuses, as we all have, then it doesn't have the power to get you.
Well, I think we can make that list with self-compassion, right? So-
Yeah, we can make that list with self-compassion, but we have to realize we're not perfect as human beings, and that's part of empathy, is having empathy for our imperfections. And nobody is perfect. And why would I want them to be? It's perfect is boring. We humans are really interesting, and we have many different sides and many different capacities. I love that. I love the richness and the nuances of what it means to be human. And so empathy lets you love it all, basically, lets you have compassion, give yourself a break. You made a mistake. Fine. Go make an amends. Be lovely to yourself instead. Don't beat yourself up. Because I just did an interview today on how empathy can help end war. And I feel like it really can, because empathy can stop the war you have with yourself, all the beating up, and all the negative thoughts that are in your head. Empathy can give you a substitute of love and compassion and goodness. Empathy can stop war with your family, because you're not going to stand there and argue with them. You're not going to stand there and give them what they're giving you and staying on the same level. You're going to come from a different level so that you don't have to go to war with your family, because you're not participating. When somebody doesn't participate, that kind of nixes the whole thing. And but you have to see that in your life by living it. And then in the global sense, if I don't throw the stone at you, I'm not going to start the war. So, and I'm not going to be the one to throw the stone. So if there are enough of us there, that's a great thing.
Well, I find this book just so impactful. I learned a lot. It really stuck with me. If someone is new on their path and they are wanting a place to start, where should they go first?
I think they should go to if they don't want to go in chronological order, I would read, if you're interested in just learning about me, you could read the very short introduction. And I'd certainly read the preface by the Dalai Lama. It's only one page, a few paragraphs. I would start there. And then in terms of starting out the book, I would go to the chapter on self-empathy and start with yourself. Just start with yourself. Chapter 3, cultivating self-empathy, restoring yourself with kindness. And so it's important to, first of all, in your journey of empathy is to befriend yourself and not look at yourself as the enemy, or not look at yourself as somebody who deserves to be punished because you're deficient or you're damaged. No, there's nobody who deserves to be punished like that. And no matter how damaged you are, no matter how lost you are, it doesn't matter. You can start over now. You can start anew right now. And this book is all inclusive. It's for everyone who's attracted to empathy and being that kind of person. As you look at the world stage, and there are a lot of narcissists on parade right now, and you think, do you want to be like them? Do you want to behave like them? Do you want to become people who are like that? And I would suspect the majority of people would say, no, these aren't people I want to emulate. They're not people I would feel proud of to be. You see, so you have to decide, what's your way? And if you want to be empathic, if you want to be giving and not a pushover and not a doormat and not exhausted, if you want to learn self-care, if you want to practice tough love from an empathic standpoint, I could teach you. And if this is who you want to be, and this I can guarantee you will never steer you wrong. Never will. You'll always be going in the right direction. And if you get lost again, that's fine. You just start over the next day. You give up that one day, can't do it, too much going on, I'm exhausted. But then the next day you get up and you take another breath, dust yourself off, and start showing empathy again.
Should people read like a chapter a day or a chapter, every couple days so that they are walking this walk every day?
Yes, that's one wonderful way of reading the book is, even a chapter a week, if you really want to savor. I love reading a book slowly and really taking it in and then seeing how my dream life responds to the book or what, I write in my journal. But cultivating self-empathy, if you do that for 3 days to a week, let's say, and try and do it in every situation that you come into, it'll give you a lot of practice. And then you can go back and read the book and see what's missing. For instance, I have a section on the positive role of tears in self-empathy. And you could look at situations where maybe you broke down in tears and you felt embarrassed or you felt unaccepted. Or you tried to hold in the tears. You could write about what's going on with that. Are tears unsafe? For me, is it not practical to show tears in an office, which is often true? So you can read the chapter for a week and then practice the various tenets in the chapter. For instance, observe, don't absorb. A principle of self-empathy is to observe a loved one's emotions, but not absorb them. Stay in your own emotional lane and don't jump into theirs. Your loved one's experience is exactly that, their experience. It is not yours. That may be hard to grasp initially. However, if you truly want to help, you must see the person you cherish as separate from you. This protects you from compassion burnout. Allow them to find their own healing path with the support of a therapist, a coach, or other healthcare practitioners. So you're not the therapist. You're not your friend's therapist or your family's therapist. That's a terrible position to get into, and I hope you can avoid it. Observe, don't absorb. Then you can choose how long you want to spend on each chapter and which one you're drawn to first. I could read you some of the chapters. Igniting the healing power of empathy, how to stop overthinking and come from your heart. Now, how many of you have a problem with overthinking and you don't know how to shift from the head to the heart? I would go to that chapter. The high art of empathic listening. I walk you through how to be an empathic listener, and all of the parameters for that. And then practicing empathy with family, friends, and coworkers, even if you don't like them, which is a big caveat. You don't have to like someone to show empathy for them. No, which is kind of mind-blowing. And then I have a chapter on healthy giving, caring without being a martyr, overhelping, or burning out. Very key chapter to being an empowered empath or empathy giver. And then there's a chapter on narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. What is an empathy deficient disorder? And for those of you who have the attraction to these people, go right to that chapter. And then the final chapters are about healing the world, empathic leadership, the strength of leading with your mind and heart, which I feel so strongly about. The healing grace of forgiveness, releasing resentments, and building empathy. And then the final chapter is You Matter to Me, the power of we. And so how we can all come together and let everyone know you matter to me, and we're in this together. And I love that, because that's what empathy can bring, is that sense of togetherness. Even if you've never met somebody before, when you do meet them, it's not like you're meeting a stranger. You're meeting another human. And that's very consoling to me, because I love more than anything else connection. The quality of high connection and loving connection. That's what this book will teach you, is how to have more of that. So you're not deficient in loving connection. You want to have the shining lights of eyes looking at you and supporting you through your life's path, loving eyes. And you want to be the loving, empathic person who can set limits and also be supportive to other people going through things.
Now, Dr. Orloff, you have a chapter that really kind of stuck out to me. It's the healing grace of forgiveness. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yes, forgiveness is interesting, isn't it? Forgiveness is a form of grace, and it's not something you just get there. It's something you evolve into. If you go through a big trauma, you're not going to be able to forgive your people who harmed you right away. You're not going to want to, nor should you want to at that point. You want to get through the phases of anger and hurt and trauma and whatever else you're going through. You want to honestly admit that and begin to heal, so that you can move beyond whatever happened. And that means feeling the suffering of it in the beginning. But then you go on to another phase. And there may come a time, it might be months, it might be years, where there's something in you that wants to have empathy for the person who hurt you and their limited parts, the part that caused them to hurt you so much, the crippling in themselves. And you may want to forgive that. I think it's very hard to forgive a violent act or something like that. I'm not suggesting you do that, though I know some people do get to that point, but I'm not suggesting that right now. I'm just suggesting that you find something about the person that you could have empathy for, so that resentment isn't glommed onto you. Until you're able to do this, you're carrying around a big burden. And the magic of empathy is if you can just have empathy for the tiniest part of them, then the resentment begins to drift off into the air, and it's not in your energy field anymore. And you're not thinking about the person, so much. And you're not telling the same old story about what happened. And your mind goes to other ideas and other possibilities. You see, when you have a lot of resentments glommed onto you, you can't think clearly because they take up too much room. And so you want to be able to let go as many as you authentically can, not spiritually bypassing anything. You deal with your real emotions that happen right away as a result of being hurt or whatever happened. But then the grief evolves into other possibilities that you might want to consider. Like I had a patient whose mother was quite abusive to her. And it was interesting because her mother got dementia. And as a result of the dementia, her mother was a raging alcoholic and very abusive. But as a result of the dementia, she forgot to drink. She just didn't remember it anymore. And so she ended up getting sober, and her whole personality changed to being a pretty nice woman. And so, my patient decided she's not going to belabor that. She's going to take advantage of this loving mother that suddenly appeared, in a most unsuspecting of ways. And they spent a beautiful year together before the mother passed on. You see, so it's sort of a miracle. But she made that decision. She didn't have to. She could have just said, forget it, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But she didn't, and it was her choice. And I found that was a very, very interesting choice and an interesting situation, to have a disease or a disorder remove something so terrible, such as violent alcoholism, to create a peaceful mother. I find that a miracle. And the choice that my patient made was, I have great respect for it. And she's totally happy with it. And she feels like she was given, an incredible blessing to have had the experience of a loving mother for a year. If you could really feel into that, it's very powerful what she was given. And so with resentments, it's up to you. If you want to hold on to all of them, go ahead. No judgment. Hold on to them. But I'm just saying, if you don't want to hold on to them and you want to have a lighter spirit and lightness of spirit and have not always have resentments in your visual field and in your memory, but have other thoughts and, look at little birds instead of your resentments. Anything is better than having all these resentments glommed onto you. And the more you can forgive, the more these resentments will disappear. They'll go away. And it's almost as if you forget to remember them, because they're not there anymore. You don't have the resentments. And what that gives you is enormous freedom. So that's why I present it as a choice to you at the end of the book and an expression of empathy. If you can find empathy, even for your greatest opponent, one aspect, it can soften the relationship with that opponent. So it kind of works in a magical way. It's nuanced, and you might not have thought of it this way before, but I'd like you to try it and just feel into what I'm describing to you.
Dr. Orloff, I just love that. Let me tell you, I am working and reworking that one
Yeah.
with a few people.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's working and reworking it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But you don't want to hold on to it. And it takes a certain amount of humility to work it and rework it, as opposed to, I'm never going to do that. I am never going to let it go. And some people feel that way. So, they're entitled to feel that way. They can hold on as long as they want. But if I may say so, there is a better way, a more fun way, a more freeing way. And you could get to the point of letting certain things go. It's a blessing. It's a life skill. And I think you'll enjoy it tremendously. It's so much more pleasant than carrying around all that stuff, particularly as you age, because they get, they build up a number of these resentments. And also you can get in the habit of making amends to people. If someone has a resentment towards you and it's your fault, you did something, you made a mistake, you did something. You need to go to that person and make an amends for it, because that's yin for yang. That's the way of clearing it in your system. And so consider that. You don't just forget it. You say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made this horrible mistake and it hurt you like this. I'm just so sorry. I wish I could take it back. That will promote your healing and the healing of the other person. Not that they have to accept your amends, but at least you made them.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Orloff. I mean, I could spend like hours talking with you about this. I'm just so excited about this book, The Genius of Empathy. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work and be part of your community?
Yes, I have an empath support newsletter on my website that you could sign up for free. And my website's Judith Orloff, ORLOFF.com. And The Genius of Empathy is now available at bookstores and online. And on my website, I have special free gifts for you with the purchase of the book. And it's a free ebook on empathy and lots of videos on how to work with empathy and the toxic attraction between narcissists and empaths. So you get a lot of goodies. So you can go on drjudithorloff.com. And my book tour schedule is on my website.
Well, Dr. Orloff, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Dr. Orloff. It is such an honor to spend time with you and to talk about your new book, The Genius of Empathy. The Genius of Empathy is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. Make sure to visit Dr. Orloff's website at drjudithorloff.com for more information on her work, her other great books, and how to be part of her community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.